This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you, everyone, for joining Thrive, Reframing Obstacles, Reevaluate, and Mindset Changes. This is brought to you by Restore Resilience, powered by Zillion. We very much appreciate they coming in and providing support for this for all of our 4 sessions. And I just quickly want to, for those of you who are not members and don't know us, we are the Worksite Wellness Council of Massachusetts, the premier community for thought leadership and in employee well-being. And our mission is to provide programs, networking, resources to help organizations cultivate and sustain a thriving culture. Similar to these types of programs, our webinars, or in-person, our networking, our conference, those are all to help connect, collaborate, and learn from each other about the industry best and emerging best practices. So we look forward to providing you more to come with these programs. And we couldn't do it without our sponsors. We always love to thank our sponsors for all their continued support throughout the year in all of our programs. Again, in our conference, we have corporate and conference sponsorships. We have webinar sponsors and sponsors of programs such as these. If you are interested or need more information, don't hesitate to reach out to Phil Bean, our vice chair at sponsors at WWCMA.org. And thank you to our sponsors for helping us provide this COVID-19 resources page. We know that there is a plethora of information out there. We just wanted to provide another opportunity for you to provide a one-stop shop information platform for all different types of well-being employer resources. So definitely please take a look at it, and please reach us out if you have any questions. So I just want to talk about we have our upcoming Thrive events. We had our previous one on Healthy Home last week. We're doing Reframing Obstacles this week, and we have 2 more after this. So more information can be found on the website about those descriptions. But I look forward to participation and interaction today, and that we constantly learn and feed off of that interaction to keep providing these upcoming 2 programs to best fit your needs. If you are interested in becoming a member, know that you can join and get 3 months free. Use promo code FREE3 and go to WWCMA.org to learn more. We definitely want you to take advantage of a lot of the resources we'll be providing in the next year virtually. And lastly, some housekeeping. We're using GoToMeeting. We would all love for you to join the webcam if you feel comfortable. We will ask you to stay mute during the presentation. I will be asking some questions, a couple of questions during. I don't mind if you unmute and chime in. And then please do feel free to unmute yourself and chime in during the discussion portion. We also have a chat box. It's the little bubble also at the top of your toolbar. Feel free to add questions in there. I'll be checking those at the end of the presentation portion, but feel free to add questions in throughout the presentation and then during. If you don't feel comfortable speaking up, please add the question there and we can address it. And even a conversation too. If you have a thought, I can definitely bring that up. And so we would like any feedback also can be submitted through there about the presentation. We also will be recording this, and it will be available on our website to members shortly after after we've completed it. And I'm your speaker. Kirsten Wright-Cirit. I'm a holistic health coach and founder of Your Wellness Scout. I'm also the WWCMA's Education and Events co-chair, and I've been in the industry. I've been in industry for about 17 years, and then I revitalized my passion, realized how I could put my passion into play, and I love providing targeted corporate wellness programs to support employee well-being, work-life balance, and a lot of, I've been doing a lot more with working parents recently, but I really have been thriving to provide more resilience, and I'm excited to be able to present some of this in conjunction with the WWCMA to provide some learning programs about, as not only employers, but in individuals, what we can do for ourselves. Now, let's all take a deep breath. And I may do another breathing exercise a little bit later, but let's just jump right in. I definitely want to leave enough time for conversation. So I started off last week's session with this quick diagram, and I want to include it again because I really think the lifestyle approach is so important to understanding your emotional well-being. And we want to encourage you throughout these sessions to think about, why we're calling this Thrive. And a lot of it is because thriving is not just being, bouncing back from a situation. It's about understanding how you can more than just cope, but shift your mindset, understand how you can tackle different aspects in your life, whether it's lifestyle, whether it's response, whether it's, all these different aspects to help your emotional well-being and to grow. So actually, this is one of my questions I do want to ask. Feel free to jump in, unmute yourself. How do you react to obstacle or challenges? It can be your immediate response, which could be a physiological, or it could be something that's long-term. So just would love some quick shout outs of how you react to obstacles or challenges. What's your first reaction? Well, some of you have had some obstacles and challenges. Nobody's had one now. So do you get frustrated? Do you get sweaty palms? Do you yell at somebody? Do you reach for candy? What are some of your reactions to obstacles or challenges?
Wine.
Wine.
I usually talk to friends and family, get some advice.
Good one. Okay. Sometimes you become despondent, you go inward.
Depressed.
Sometimes you reach rest.
Depressed.
Depressed. There we go. Depressed. And these are all normal. These are all very normal reactions.
Depends on the intensity of the challenge. So if it's a small challenge or one I faced before, it's easier than something new, or especially technology challenges. I hate those. Those just tense me up completely.
Yeah. I think we're all dealing with those now too. I said to someone that when I have a technology challenge, it distracts me from my from what I'm doing, which is hard. Like your content. And we're not used to sometimes having that division of, okay, now I got to focus on technology. Now I got to focus on what I'm actually talking about. Great.
For me, I find that how I respond is really very much about what is my mental starting point when this trigger happens. So sometimes my responses are super productive and sometimes they're not productive at all. And it just kind of depends on where I'm at when that happens and if I take that moment to breathe or do whatever I'm supposed to do.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's great. And I think that's one of the just perfect segue into my next part is that what if you paused, identified, and evaluated? And I think that comes from, exactly a very good, there are certain things that will make us go to number 100 on the scale of anxiety. And there's others that will make us go to number 5. And it's important to understand kind of which ones those are. And whatever it is, we have lots of different reactions. But what if we stopped and we evaluated? And what if we noticed what those reactions were? Maybe first it was identifying the reaction to stress was, going for wine, or maybe it's getting frustrated, or maybe it's, maybe it's a positive thing, which is talking to others. But I think the biggest problem we oftentimes do is we don't stop and we don't recognize those early warning signs. And why is it we do react the way we do? I think that's that's part of the conversation today too, is, why is it do we do? Is it because, we have kid demands? Is it because we have a lack of physical activity? Is it because of poor eating habits? And I think, you mentioned, I think it was Christy, you mentioned that what's your set point? What's your initial point of how stressed you are? And that can go back to lifestyle. Are there things that can help you feel more calm or more anxious, that makes that reaction intensified? I had a quick little story about 2 coworkers, and they got a deadline got accelerated for them on work, and one grumbles and mutters and orders takes outs and stays up late and procrastinates and then is tired the next day and has to jam pack it. And the other colleague takes some deep breaths, maybe goes for a run if they can, or does some yoga at home, eats a proper meal, gets some rest, and is able to tackle it. those are two different reaction styles. And one was that one had a proper, a little bit more healthier mindset of how to cope with it. And sometimes we can't always make those decisions. And I think sometimes that if you don't look at your lifestyle and some of the things that actually affect how you are making decisions or how you're evaluating, you don't end up evaluating. Sometimes we don't take a pause. We don't take a deep breath, and we give in to some more harmful coping mechanisms. Another way to look at it is why we react is if you had an improved coping mechanism or a balanced reaction style, if you, would you pause and evaluate? So one of the things, I just want everyone to take a deep breath. Or actually, I'm going to do this exercise quickly because this is a good point. If you get into a stressful situation, how many of you actually take a couple of deep breaths? When I first heard the schools were closing, I reacted. I cried a little afterwards. I tried to, luckily because my daughter was in the room, I didn't really react. I didn't want her to get upset or I wouldn't be able to hold back why. But some of the things were deep breathing. One good one I like, and all of you can try it now, is you put your tongue to the tip of your roof of your mouth. You inhale for 7 counts. So everyone love to try it right now quickly. We're going to do this for 30 seconds. So put your tongue to the roof of your mouth, inhale for 7 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hold that for 8 counts. 1, 2, 3, actually 4 counts. 4. Release it for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You may not be able to do that whole thing there, but the idea is if maybe you just took a couple of deep breaths, does that lower your anxiety? Does that reset you? Is that getting deep down in that belly? That's a sense of response style. And I think one of the things is you have to look at, are you asking yourselves, are you stopping? Are you pausing? Are you looking at what could help you have a improved reaction style? What is your, as it's called, set point? Are you already in a stressed, anxiety-ridden state? So a lot of this is about awareness. A lot of it is about awareness. And so where that gets to your shifting your mindset is, can you stop and ask yourself and step back and say, would I be able to handle the stressful situation if I got a little bit more rest? Would I be able to handle the stressful situation if I was able to talk to somebody or if I took more time? I think all of us need maybe to take more time sometimes now to get something ready because you may have a challenging work environment, or you may have a lot of interruptions, or you may just be behind, or you may be thinking about, okay, where can I get, when am I going to get to the grocery store and how am I going to get there? Those types of things. So I think one of the things is, if we shifting our mindset understands a lot of different factors, your lifestyle factors, your response factors. It also might mean looking at, as we talked about lifestyle, you're evaluating your stressors. One of the things, I'll give an example is, the first weekend this all happened with, with the closing of schools and businesses and things is, we talked about some doing puzzles, and my husband said, why don't we expand our kitchen table? And we hadn't done that we've done that once in the 9 years we've owned this table. And we opened it up and we had a fresh perspective. We're like, oh, we should have opened this all the time. And when my parents came over, we could have had them all sitting here and friends, and we've left it open. And I don't know if we'll close it again. We may not, and I'm trying not to put too much clutter on it, because that's what happens when you have an open space. But the idea is we realized, oh, this gave us a new opportunity. So that's another thing is another way is, a simple mantra, develop a mantra is, how could I learn from this? What could I gain from this? How can I try something new? And that may be easier said than done with certain stressors, but it's the idea of tapping into your inner self and saying, okay, what am I strong at? What am I really good at? And how can I leverage that in this situation? And that's, these are much larger exercises that take a lot, deeper conversation, a lot more time. But the point of this is just to kind of get you thinking of, how can I approach this differently, whether it's through lifestyle, maybe it's through how I respond, maybe it's by pausing in the moment and having a mantra or an uplifting mental map message. Maybe it's identifying the warning signs. Maybe it's focusing on positive coping mechanisms. As I heard someone say, they talk to friends. So it's looking at yourself and what's the best way to approach it. Because in the end, stress is going to happen, right? It's going to happen and you can't control it, but you can control your reaction. I think many of you have probably heard this. It's always going to be out there, and it's how we react, how we pause, how we take a moment to reflect on whether this is a scale of 1 to 10. There's so many different tools and techniques to use, and that's how you start shifting your mind. So what if we pause to understand factors and aspects of how we evaluate stress? One way is, maybe you're sitting with a loved one at home and you've never spent so much time with them in your life as now, right? And you're like, how is this going to be hurting my relationship? But also think about how you can immediately turn to that person and get a hug, right? Or if you're, now you're like, if you don't have a partner at home, or you don't have any, spouse or loved ones, and you're sitting there alone, you're like, I'm all alone. Well, there's also so many ways to connect with people. There's also so many opportunities to start new hobbies and start new experiences. It won't take away certain elements that are unfortunate, which we all know, but the idea is trying to understand what your strengths are and making the most of them too. And lastly, if we do, we might be able to thrive. So again, these are a lot of just quick little tips. Let it go, identify your response style, evaluate, get support, healthy, acknowledge your strengths and vulnerabilities, and just remember stress. It's how we react that matters, what we can control, and allow daily quiet time for reflection, meditate. These again are just quick things that, again, along the way you can do. You don't have to do all of them, but they're ways to understand your thriving. So I want to stop there as I've gone on. Would love to open it up to conversation, dialogue. I'll check the chat box, but I would love anyone to jump in with any quick thoughts or comments. Otherwise, I will actually get started with some specific questions to kind of help us talk about this a little bit more in sharing. I know that a lot of people have a lot of good techniques, and I'm sure a lot of people are here to hear those techniques and hear what you do and how you are able to shift your mindset to one of a little bit more positive alternatives. Okay. So I haven't had anyone chime in. I don't have any questions. So I would love to hear, and I should have changed that to top 3, excuse me. I would love some people to chime in on what their top challenge or stressful situation that they've noticed they've had a really strong reaction to. How did they react? If anyone doesn't mind sharing. And it could be not just yourself, let's say somebody else. Maybe you've noticed somebody else. So either yours or somebody else's reaction to a stressful obstacle or situation.
I've got one. It's Christy. I have found, particularly recently with just new challenges that seem to pop up everywhere, that particularly in the context of work, where there are more problems and challenges that just exist to be solved right now. Sometimes when somebody makes a suggestion, either raises the challenge or opportunity or makes a suggestion, and it's something that is anywhere in my purview, sometimes I find myself reacting, and I have to take a moment and pause and figure out why I'm reacting that way in that moment. And in many cases, it's a challenge or opportunity that I already know about. Other times it's something that I may not know about, but totally agree with, and yet still sometimes I react negatively to that, almost like it's a direct reflection of me and my ability to do my job. And when I know that I do that, and so taking the moment to reflect on that, and when I have those moments of pause, or even after the fact, and say, wow, why did I react like that? What did I think in that moment? And then work myself through, does that really reflect on you? No, it absolutely doesn't. The problem had nothing to do with me. I didn't cause it. So, that allows me to catch it a little bit more quickly the next time when something similar happens.
So what would you identify as kind of your evaluation tool?
I have a technique that that I have learned through my own company and some training that we do called trap it, map it, zap it. It's a classic psych technique, and you trap the thought. So first off, you have to know you're having the emotion. So it's just general awareness. So you trap the thought, or the emotion. You map it back to what was I thinking in that moment, and maybe I'm thinking, oh no, you know, so and so that brought this to me thinks I'm not doing my job. So that's a thought that leads to some kind of strong emotion like shame or anger, even like, why are you bringing this to me? This is not your job. I'm solving this, whatever that may be. And then, so trap it, map it, and then zap it is the reframe. So in the moment, once I know, wow, I just thought that so-and-so thinks I'm not doing my job, that is absolutely not what's happening right now. What's actually happening is so-and-so wants to help. So that's the technique. And once I can agree with the more productive thought, which is so-and-so just wants to help, that emotion goes away and I can get back to problem solving.
That's a really good point. The emotion went away, right? That makes you realize that a lot of times emotions, of course, are driving our reactions, which we all may know. In the brain, there's an actual physiological response. Any others? I'll step back. Questions or thoughts for Christy on sharing that? You know, maybe that's a very good technique. Any others have thoughts or questions about what Christy mentioned?
Kirsten, this is Hillary. I think what Christy mentioned is a lot about self-awareness, and obviously she's very self-aware. She wants to respond better, therefore she uses the tools that she has in her tool belt. She can identify her emotions and when they're coming up. And I think that self-awareness is something that can be practiced through meditation. And I think, you know, talking about mindfulness and meditation is important, because not that you are going to meditate in the middle of a stressful meeting, it would be a little too obvious, but the work that you do on a daily basis through your meditation practice, it trains your brain to be non-judgmental of your thoughts and emotions, so that when you're in that crisis situation in the heat of the moment, that muscle memory, your brain can automatically go to that resource that you cultivated through a daily practice of meditation. So I think it's helpful to understand that skill that Christy has doesn't just come naturally. It takes practice, and it really takes dedication to a formal mindfulness practice.
Definitely, but yeah, and I think a lot of people, I've heard more and more when you talk about meditation, it's not about that immediate, it's not about the immediate practice, it's about what it provides, the tool that it provides you later on. Your meditation provides the framework in your body to react, deal, manage. So that's a very good point, yes. And, you know, and people, you know, there's different forms of meditation, and people, you know, if that's not their thing, they can always sometimes even just, again, rest, deep thoughts, different forms of meditation.
I think that's a great point. And, you know, just like meditation is one form of exercise for your brain in getting to that point where you're more mindful, there are lots of other forms, as Kirsten said. Another one that I really love is journaling. So even if I'm not meditating, let's say I have that same example and I had a big reaction. Later, I might want to examine that, go write it down, and then do the exercise, whether it's the one I mentioned or a different one, and say, what happened? Completely objectively, what actually happened, what are the facts, how did I feel in that moment, what is a reframe, another story that I could tell myself about what was happening, and by writing it all down, that builds the awareness.
Yeah. And even with that too, I like with the journaling aspect, you almost, it's that same sense of the visioning is you could write down what would be the reaction I would prefer, what would be the more ideal reaction, how do I envision that happening? What do I need to say to myself to have that reaction, or have that response, whether it's a practice, whether it's an actual mantra, whether it's something done in the moment or in preparation. But I love that journaling idea too, because that allows that reflective time period to look at it from all different angles. Another good one with that is positive, the positive gratitude. I think that's a good way at the end of the day too, to kind of reset you, with that journaling, to understand, what am I grateful for? So sometimes when you're grateful and you understand how good things can be, it helps you lessen the intensity of what's happened. It kind of puts things in perspective, I think.
I love that point about gratitude, and I would love to hear from other people. Are you finding more opportunities or practicing expressing gratitude in the world the way it is today?
No. All you do is watch the news, and it's so depressing. But I would say I am a big journaler, if that's the term we're using. And one of the things that I find is after I get upset is like write down a 5-step action plan, and that really helps me a lot to have, a plan of attack.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to express more gratitude. When the whole COVID-19, sort of panic set in, I set out to get outside for a run or a bike ride every day. And on my run, I told myself I'm going to say hi. And I typically say hi to almost everyone, but I made a point to say hello to everyone I passed. Of course, I found that only about 1/3 of the people respond positively to that, which is interesting. But I tried. I was like, all right, we're just gonna have this positive attitude, right? We're gonna hit this head on. Everyone's gonna be. Let's just help each other out and be positive. And I'm still trying to have that approach. And I don't watch the news. You can't go on Facebook and read the posts. I mean, it's so negative and there's so much fear mongering. So I'm just trying to be the opposite of that. And so far, so good.
That's great. Well, I love the positivity, because that can lead to, I think, sometimes healthier reactions in your body too. It doesn't matter if people say hi, you just keep saying hi. It'll come around. Love to hear others' thoughts too.
I think for me,
We lost you.
oh, okay, here we go. Sorry about that. I was just saying, I think for me, I've tried journaling and kind of the meditation, and I'm a very social person. So sometimes that's hit or miss for me. So I found that I've really become more grateful for my social connections, whether it's, doing a Zoom call with friends I haven't talked to in a really long time, just kind of being able to catch them up in my life and talk about the frustrations with them. I found myself really being like, hey, thank you for being there for me and just letting me kind of vent and talk about what's been bugging me, and kind of also, I'm there for them. And that's been something that outside of the workplace, I've been able to kind of reconnect with some of my older friends. And that's been a really positive thing.
Yeah, I think that there's some people are actually connecting even more. And when you understand that, you can look at this, this is a great opportunity to connect. I'm making an extra effort to connect. I have a group of girlfriends in North Carolina, and we had a running email for several years, and now we're getting together tonight for yoga, some of us. We hadn't thought to ever do that before, but now we are. So that's part of that gratitude, reframing, understanding how you can approach then the next situation, stressful situation that comes along, and says, oh, well, I could react one way, or I could think about there could be another way of alternative to seeing how this could create a positive. Any others have any good thoughts or tips on how they have, not only with gratitude, but maybe in the heat of the moment or in the moment when they have a challenge, any other thoughts on how they've been reacting or how they've handled, maybe they've relied on a strength, an inner strength, an approach you could share?
Kirsten, this is Hillary again. And you actually mentioned when you found out your daughter's school was closed, you managed your reaction around your daughter because you probably didn't want to scare her. You wanted to be a good role model for her, right? And I think if you, well, speaking personally, when I am in a situation and I have that moment of pause, I try to tap into who do I want to be in this situation and my values, right? I want to be a role model for my kids. They're adults now, but they're watching my every move. And I think, especially as parents, we have that opportunity to show our kids how to respect not only them, but ourselves and strangers and people that service people in the grocery store. And so I think, you know, how you treat other people in front of them is very important. So I think if you can really keep that connection to your values and who you want to be, not only in your life as a whole, but also like, who do I want to be during this COVID-19 period?
Yeah.
So, you know, setting an intention or connecting to your values is helpful.
Yeah, good reminder.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even regardless of children, I think of my colleagues. I know bosses, managers, and colleagues who, in face of very, very, very strict, stressful things that have happened, whether economic or whatnot, and I've seen how they've reacted and handled that situation. And so modeling, I think, is, you're right, is a great way of understanding, a great way of making, but also as well to.
And will be muted throughout the meeting.
Right.
This meeting is full. Goodbye.
I think we have a technical challenge heading our way, but that's okay.
Deep breath, Kirsten.
What?
Take a deep breath.
I know, right? Hey, it's gonna, I mean, we're all on technology now. It's gonna happen. My cat was screaming earlier. She luckily stopped. But value, looking at your inner values, modeling, those are all great techniques. I think we have a couple of people staying on just for a little bit longer. Any last thoughts, questions for those who have spoken? Just last remaining thoughts about any of these response styles and lifestyle changes and reactions.
I have just one more thing that comes to mind that I think is really important to help support individuals, and then also build, collectively better reactions in stressful situations, which is creating some kind of shared language around it. Because it's one thing to practice it yourself, and it's another thing to be able to talk with other people about what you're doing and teach them the same techniques, so that in a moment, I can't tell you how helpful I find this. Like in my company, for example, we practice all this stuff as teams, and I can say to somebody in a moment, my go-to emotion is frustration, and I'm experiencing a lot of frustration right now because I feel like I don't have the resources to get this done. And I say it, and they're like, oh, I totally get that. So let's work through that. So that, just having that shared language, whatever that is, with whoever you're interacting with, is really helpful.
That's a great shared language. It's kind of like, what was it, the buzzwords you used to have? Like, my daughter would get angry or something like that. Last year I had a lot of challenges with my daughter, and I would overtalk the situation, which is probably obvious. And my mom said, just say bacon, because you couldn't talk about it in front of a 4 or 5 So I would just go bacon, 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 bacon. And my husband thought this was hilarious, but it was good. It stopped me. Okay. So it's not quite as sophisticated as your shared language, Christy. I love it, but I think, we can.
It doesn't matter what the language is, as long as it's shared and productive.
I'd scream bacon, and my husband would come running from the other room. Okay, I've got this handled now. So when I scream bacon in our meetings, everyone will know now what's happening.
Yeah, now the council has a shared language around bacon. Do we really have to pick bacon though?
Yeah. Well, good. Well, I again, any other thoughts or questions? We would love, your feedback. Submit it in the chat. We have a follow-up survey. Email us. We'd love to hear from all of you. How your thoughts on the session, content delivery, or whatnot. We love your participation. We love hearing from you. So next week is about boosting immunity. We're going to talk about physical, mental, and more. As usual, what you can do for yourself, for your employees. So I thank you again. Please don't hesitate to reach out, and I want everyone to have a safe and healthy and dry Friday and weekend. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.